Ready. Play.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time it is in the world, wherever you are tuning in from. Well, whatever time it is, wherever you are, I'm guessing it's December 2024, unless you're watching this months or even years into the future. But if you are watching this years into the future, it's because this match has aged pretty well, Damien.
I think it might, yeah. I mean, this is just one of these matches that will just be mentioned as a tidbit anytime we have a tiebreak, a match tiebreak specifically at a Grand Slam going really deep. This broke the record of, I think, Wimbledon 2023, Tsurenko against someone. Uh, 2018, maybe Tsurenko and Bogdan. So I think definitely going forward, we will be mentioning this match whenever that situation happens, as in like, oh, this is just like Blinkova Rybakina. Remember how cool that was? And yes, maybe this will also give that sort of everlasting legacy to this episode.
I'm wondering if maybe we've been a bit unfair on this. I'm just going to confirm, but I think we're putting it at 4 in our list. Done a few little polls within the WhatsApp group this year. I didn't dare put them to the human beings out there on the Twitter sphere. But yeah, this one's going to be our number 4 on our list. And having just sort of gone through the match again, it's even better than I remembered.
It's really good. Yeah, I also enjoyed coming back to it, actually learning some new things, sort of. I mean, I guess discovering that Blinkova had match points even before the breaker.
Just one thing, sorry, just one thing. All those, well, mainly Vanch, but also some people in the live chat the other day that were saying, oh, it was just the tie break. So wrong.
That's exactly what I was going to say, actually, that yes, people just keep saying that, okay, maybe this shouldn't be top 5 because it's just the breaker. And I mean, it kind of works both ways. Like the breaker was so good that we forgot what was happening in the match beforehand. And that seems very entertaining too, now that I'm revisiting it. And yeah, I'm very happy with this being the top 5. I don't know what exactly is going to be 3 and 5. Is it Kerber Zheng at 5 then?
5 Kerber Zheng, yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm fine with this placement. As you know, like I had 4 matches that I thought were definitely going to be in the top 5. This was one of them. Whether this is better than Vekic Paulini, I think I'm fine with calling this a number 4. It's still, it's not a semi-final. It's, I guess, the importance of that match in terms of the actual event. We will talk about this, I'm sure. But it's one of the favorites going out rather than something that, okay, this player makes a maiden Grand Slam final or something. But still, I think it deserves to be there. It deserves to be here. And after revisiting this match today, I certainly sort of even further, basically agree with myself from a couple of days ago.
Yes. I probably wanted this to be amazing, or wanted the first 3 sets to be amazing, but it's even better than my desires could possibly hope for. Rybakina, of course, coming into this was in the final the year before. One of the top 2 or 3 favorites, probably top 2 favorites, I guess, along with Arina Sabalenka going into the tournament, maybe even top 1, bearing in mind her pre-Australian Open form.
I think even top 1, yeah. I mean, she just crushed Sabalenka in an incredible performance. That whole event in Brisbane, she was just like not losing games. I don't remember how many exactly. Was it like 15 or something like that? It was insane. The final, just crushing someone. I think most of us had Rybakina and Sabalenka in the final going into the Australian Open. Of course, there was always the talk about Świątek and like whether she can improve on a faster court again. But considering that Rybakina also beat her in Melbourne in 2023 and was also looking strong there, yeah, it just seemed to me like she's probably the main favorite. Although she lost that one match to Alexandrova in Adelaide, but it was just pretty clear that, I mean, her head probably wasn't in the game, right? I mean, why would she play 2 weeks in a row just before a slam? So yeah, I know that Rybakina can maybe have some random losses from time to time, but this was during a patch where this basically never happened to her. And also, yeah, at the time she just felt so strong that it felt impossible for anyone to upset her.
Yeah, right. And well, she wins the first round against Pliskova, and that's probably because I think the Adelaide is a little blip, but nothing more. And in a way, it's like we see it often with heavyweights and going into a tournament, and then mysterious withdrawals is what often happens in that week before, or just sort of slightly unusual losses, so that they still have some energy in the tank. I mean, we've also mentioned, by the way, her scheduling, which was a bit odd in playing that second tournament so quick after the Brisbane one where she won. Anyway, she plays Pliskova in the first round, and actually there were one or two little signs in that match. I think she was down a break in the first set and probably should have lost that first set, but managed to get over the line. It was two tight sets that she wins over Pliskova. Maybe as well, you might well go, well, it's an opponent with a lot of pedigree. But she then comes into this match, and the first set is tight. But Blinkova is doing what also Blinkova is capable of doing, which is just hitting the ball with absolute venom and playing very aggressively. And I remember seeing Blinkova up close a few times in 2023 thinking, wow, on her day, this, when she put it all together, this is an amazing tennis player who could probably beat most players in the world. The problem is that her day would be few and far between. I mean, what about the matchup between the two? Is if I just said to you Blinkova's beating Rybakina, in a way I think you can see how that could pan out, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, there's so many rallies in this match where they're just like flat hitting against each other, and then there's like not that much of a difference between them in a way. I mean, obviously the serving is always going to be on Rybakina's side, and it was more of a reflection of her form going into the event that we thought that okay, this cannot happen. But yeah, Blinkova does have, especially now, she has a bit of a reputation as a giant killer for sure. I think in 2023 she also had a top 5 upset at a slam. Much weaker one, Caroline Garcia, the French. Obviously, yeah, it's very different, but still. And I think even this year, going forward after the Australian Open, kind of, yeah, it really shows like what sort of player she is in terms of the streakiness. I think in the summer she was on like a 9-10 match losing streak. And then very recently she picks it up again. She wins WTA 125. I think the next event she's in the final again. And it's kind of like that with Blinkova a lot of the time. But yeah, of course, this is the biggest example of her being a player capable of that. But if you're just throwing it to me sort of like in a vacuum that Blinkova is making an upset like this, yeah, she's one of the players who definitely can.
She wins the first set 6-4. She actually goes up an early break, I think about 1-1 or 2-1, something like that. She gets that early break and never lets it go, and wins that first set 6-5 in 35 minutes, 6-4, sorry, in 35 minutes, which is pretty swift for a 10-game set, especially as the match would go on. They would have some pretty lengthy rallies, and none more so than in the tiebreak. She then goes up a set and a break, and again, it's the aggressive tennis. I think is the break that she gets in the second set, I think, is on the backhand side from Rybakina, which is just a forced error. There's just nothing that Elena can do about it. And now it's like everyone's sort of possibly tuning in, thinking the next 20 minutes are going to have a huge bearing on the destiny of the Australian Open. Little did we know it was going to be the next 2 hours rather than the next 20 minutes, because we probably thought, well, if Rybakina is going to get back into this match, then we can probably switch off again. Well, basically, with every game, it was going to get, at every point at one point, it was going to get more and more intriguing, because Rybakina does break back. And when she breaks at 4-5, so it's one of those scenarios where Blinkova is obviously saving to stay in the set, and she just snatches it at that moment, and you're thinking, okay, better player probably overall. Blinkova's had her moment. It's going to go 3 sets, and it'll be a match that Rybakina looks back on as she's taken the court on the day of the final, going, that was a near miss. There was a little bit of a bump in the road, but she came through in 3. Blinkova had other ideas.
Yeah, I mean, this year we had a match between Osaka and Świątek at Roland Garros in the second round, right? I mean, could this be kind of, something that also could have happened here if Rybakina takes that match? Maybe. A lot of Grand Slam runs are built on a match like this, where you survive in the early rounds, but it doesn't really matter because you're still playing well. Like, it's not like Rybakina is suddenly out of form. Right after this event, she wins Abu Dhabi, she makes the final in Doha, she only withdraws from Dubai, I think. Then also Miami, she makes the final. So yeah, it's definitely not like her form just suddenly went away. She was still playing well. She gets through this one, and maybe we have another story like Iga, or at Wimbledon, I guess we had Krejcikova in the first round struggling like this against Kudermetova. And I don't know if we had any. Did we have that in the US Open with Sabalenka? Not really, I guess.
No, not really. I think she
That's
dropped
the
one
only
set,
one.
maybe.
Hmm?
But yeah, I think
Yeah,
she might have dropped one set. Is she on the way to the
yeah,
final?
that's the only Grand Slam title run this year. I guess that was like really well. Actually, both Sabalenka runs. So it's just
One, I
Sabalenka
think
that
she didn't
doesn't
drop a
fall
set in
into that.
Australia. I think she didn't drop a set, Sabalenka, in Australia. She
Ah.
came closer to it with Goff, but yeah, I know what you mean. And I actually, it was something I was going to basically say is that, sometimes we see a sort of a shock result, but there's a bigger picture. And we did see bigger picture stuff with Rybakina later in the year, but this was not. So those of you that have the sort of second half of the season for Rybakina in mind, and how that sort of fell away in sort of two different fashions, if you like. But this was actually during a 4-month stretch when she was turning up at tournaments and playing extremely well and winning a lot of them. Stuttgart being one, being in the final of Miami another, and obviously the tournament you mentioned where she just wiped the floor with Sabalenka and made a few of us sort of scratch our heads and rethink how the next sort of few months on hard courts at least was going to pan out. And really this performance as well, which is probably what we're getting to the heart of. It's the performance from Rybakina, which is why, even though it was an upset and a surprise, it's not Rybakina dropping her level significantly and then the other person taking advantage of it. Rybakina's bringing it too.
Yeah, I mean, even in this sort of like very pressure, very high pressure match, of course, she has that ice cool attitude about her, and I think she would kept it up really until the end. Of course, there's a few unforced errors here or there. That's her game. She hits super fast, she hits super aggressive, but yeah, I don't think she's really done anything poorly here. It's obviously a match that she leaves with regrets, because if you've had a few match points, you have to have moments, and there are a few points in that breaker when she definitely can take the match. But still, yeah, I don't really think that it would be one of these upsets where, yeah, we're just looking, okay, I don't know, she gassed out or whatever. This is also a topic that's been raised many times, but Rybakina before, well, let's say until Wimbledon this year, just as good as Świątek and Sabalenka, maybe sometimes even better. It's only the second half of the year that is now kind of obviously making us, basically eliminated her out of that race for the best player in the world or whatever. Of course, also what eliminated her from that race in the first, let's say, 6-7 months is that she didn't win a slam.
Indeed. The stadium, from watching the highlights today, was far from probably not even half full, which may also have affected our thoughts on it. Although I wonder if it did get full towards the end of the match, because I'm watching it here in the earlier stages. But what I want to bring us to now is the fact that Blinkova. So again, I'm going to come to this point. I even wonder if it might have, if it just was a 6-4 or 7-5 for Blinkova in the third. I wonder if it still might have entered our conversation for the matches of the year. I wonder if it had been 7-5, for example, and we'd have gone, wow, that was an incredible win for Blinkova. And remember that, yeah, that's certainly one of the best matches in Australia. Although I think finally it wouldn't make the top 5, but I think it might have been in our conversation.
A bit of a stretch, to be honest. I think there are just so many matches like this over the course of the season, and it takes a lot to stand out, especially when it's not a final, when it's not a semi-final, when it's not a match that everyone watched as well. Whereas in the case of this match, I guess one of its main assets was that I think neither me or you, actually, we weren't watching it from the very beginning.
Till the
We
third
tuned
set,
in along the way.
Yeah.
And when people sort of like see what the deal is, that they're going to the tie break, even maybe before the breaker, that it's going so crazy and Blinkova is serving for the match twice and everything, I think that's when they tune in. And if it was just like a 6-4 win in the third, we never really get the magic. Would it be mentioned in the conversation? I don't remember which match from the Australian Open we raised sort of like next to it. but I don't think it would really like. Oh, actually, we were probably talking about the Iga clashes, right, with Kenny
Yeah,
and
Iga
Collins
Collins, and
and
then
Noskova.
yeah.
But it would be the same. Like it would be in the same boat as Świątek Collins, Świątek Noskova, like that. These sort of matches. So not top 5 material, not at all.
No, not top 5, but I just wonder if it would have been in that Noskova Swiatek conversation. It might be 3 matches that we would reflect on in Australia in terms of this great match of the year, and we might go, oh yeah, well actually the ball striking in that Rybakina. Although you're right, we might not have tuned into the ball striking because it didn't go to a third set tiebreak as it did, but. I don't know, maybe not, but it might have been in that sort of 3 matches that we look back on, but we're not putting it in the top 5. By the way, Blinkova, so the third set, she goes up a break for 2-1, I think it was, or maybe 2-1 with a forehand winner. Again, just doing what Blinkova only does, although in that occasion she did punish a short ball from Rybakina. And you're thinking, okay, this is very, very, very interesting now, and particularly as the result of this match would arguably be one of the 3 most influential results in the tournament, maybe the most influential result in terms of how the draw pans out. We're sort of looking at Rybakina and Swiatek on a collision course. And now what we don't know, of course, is what's going to happen with Swiatek. And that's one of the other matches I would include in that sort of 3 most significant matches. You know, you could probably say Sabalenka beating Goff was more significant than Sabalenka beating Zheng in terms of her winning the title. So you'd probably put that in there as well. So those 3, this is one of the 3 matches that shape the destiny of the Australian Open.
Yeah, I mean the top half of the Australian Open was obviously quite wild. Some players kind of managed to get into a deeper stage of the event there and followed it up the rest of the year, like Kinven, like Karinskaya. Some didn't, like Yastremska, for example. And I mean, I think after, well, not after Rybakina went out, because then we still had Świątek, but when Świątek lost to Noskova and kind of had her own crazy comeback in the second round, but then didn't manage to take it into, just turn it into a huge event. That's when we knew that, okay, this top half is very volatile now. Okay, the player that eventually got on top was still the one kind of that's, let's say, expected after Świątek and Rybakina fall out. But
Zheng was expected, do you think?
After Świątek and Rybakina
maybe
were defeated, sorta, like she was still kind of the most reasonable option, but it definitely shaped the entire event, because the moment that Elena and Iga are out, we know that the top half is not going to be like we thought.
By the way, I know it's a bit of a random thought, and it's kind of obvious as well. If this was a Grand Slam final, probably we'd be talking about the greatest match of all time.
Yeah, it would easily top the list for us. I think so.
Anyway, I've gone off a slight tangent there. So Blinkova goes up a break. That break gives her a chance to ultimately serve for the match at 5-4. And I want to watch the match point, actually. I don't know if you remember watching it today. I've watched it just now, but I want to watch it again because actually, Rybakina gets oh, yes, that's right. So I want to correct myself. She goes up a break.
The match is at 6-5, yeah.
Rybakina actually gets that break back that I just spoke about, but squanders it immediately at 4-all. So she's down a break at 4-3, gets the break back with a forehand winner, squanders it with a backhand that goes wide, keep up the back. Blinkova's now leading 5-4, and she's going to serve for the match. But Rybakina breaks back again at 5-4. She gets another break again, and she's serving for the match at 6-5, and she comes up with her first match point in the match. And now we are talking about epic sort of scenarios, because the way Rybakina saves this match point with a backhand win across court from a pretty neutral position, I would say. Yeah, pretty neutral rally is just nuts. Then she has a second second match point, and they're into a rally now, which I'm watching play out. And this one is saved after a forehand error into the net from also a pretty neutral position that Blinkova will be a little bit disappointed that she couldn't have maintained that rally for. But 2 match points come and go, and now we go into a tiebreak. Any thoughts on the sort of final passages of the match before we get into the tiebreak?
Yeah, I think what's funny to add is that I actually did not remember Blinkova having these match points before.
I don't remember her serving for the match, and you and me were talking about it as it happened.
Yes, indeed. We were actually on a stream talking about this match from like, I don't know, middle of the third set or something like that,
Yep.
which is pretty insane that we just had zero recollection of it. I mean, when I saw it today in the highlights, I was like, oh, yeah, right. But I don't know if it's an argument sort of like pro or against for these people who keep saying that like this match is only the tiebreak, really. I think it just means that the tiebreak is so important that it actually made us forget pretty much everything that was before. And maybe that's also how Vange, for example, didn't think the match was worthwhile.
Yeah, indeed. So they go into the tiebreak. At least the highlights don't show the first few points, but I'm sure those out there want to see the match again. In fact, you can actually just go and watch the tiebreak alone. I think it's about 30 odd minutes. It's 42 points, of course. We could just spend like an hour just talk, or half an hour just talking about the tiebreak, the actual length it took. I know the highlights though do jump to 9-7 for Blinkova pretty quickly, and this is obviously her match points 3 and 4. It's the only time for quite some time that anyone would have such an advantage, because from now on they're just going to keep pretty much sharing the points. Every now and again someone might win 2 in a row, but obviously with the nature of the tiebreak, not enough to get that 2-point advantage. But here she is with that 2-point advantage, 9-7. The first of them is on the Rybakina serve, I believe. Yeah, 7-9. And she's talking to herself. She actually gets herself very much in the point, probably again pretty neutral, and she decides to go big. Maybe it's the match point element of it. Maybe she wouldn't have done that, and she just thought, I want to get this over and done with. Well, Ms. Blinkova, you've got 20 more minutes of this because we've got a while to go, but she puts a backhand into the net. Yeah, I mean, that is her game, really, but it's over the high part of the net, and it doesn't even hit the tape. So,
yeah, that's actually something that I vividly remember from this match. Not this match point in general, but just the fact that on these first few opportunities in the breaker, Blinkova would just try to go like all out. The first moment she has that winner down the line possibility, she just goes for it. Obviously, I understand the temptation. You just want to end it right there.
yeah.
But that's something that I kind of to this day remember, that this was something that maybe she just felt like, okay, yeah, I gotta try, and it was not working out for a while. But after that, we got a few more kind of sensational match points.
I'm sure right now she's probably quite pleased that she didn't win any of those points, because it just makes the win even more special. The next match point, though, is at 9-8, and it's on her serve. The serve probably isn't really good enough, and certainly what isn't good enough is her next shot, which went long, and that was a gift for Rybakina. And now, again, bearing in mind, so it's 9-all now at the tiebreak, and bearing in mind, Rybakina's pretty much always having to come from behind. She loses the first set after losing the break early. She goes down a break in the second set. She does get that back on serve and eventually snatches that second set. But third set, she's always coming from behind. And again, she's done so in the tiebreak. And at 9-all, I don't know, 8 times out of 10, probably the favorite, the experienced one, the previous Grand Slam winner, the previous Australian Open finalist, does eventually go on to win the match.
Yeah, and I mean, there's still going to be obviously chances for Rybakina, but after these few points where like Blinkova is a bit too overeager, that 10-9 return as well, she still kept her head cool, I guess.
Yeah, because she's got a match point there at 9-10, because she then gets the next point. But you're right. That was a second serve there from Rybakina that deserved to be attacked. It didn't look as though it went too far long. Can happen. And there we are. We're at 10-all. And again, every time Rybakina comes back, it just strengthens my conviction that she's ultimately going to win this match. Blinkova gets another match point. I think that's her fifth, I guess. And this one's on her serve as well. They're exchanging in the rally here, pretty neutral. Maybe Rybakina picks up a little bit and hits this is a funny one from Rybakina. This one at 11-10 or 11-10, because it's actually a forehand winner. One of the slowest that Rybakina will hit probably of the year. It's just about where, and she doesn't need to hit it hard because Blinkova's out of the court, if you like. And it's just hit just nicely with plenty of margin. And it's a good winner, but it's one that's very difficult to have that presence of mind to have when you are obviously facing a match point. And then Rybakina gets, I believe it's her first, pretty sure it's actually her first match point at 12-11.
Yeah, that 11-10 points is definitely the best match point save so far, I think. Oh, actually, also there was the backhand cross court, the first.
Yeah.
This is, I think, the number 6. So I guess the first and the 6th, yeah. But there's just a lot of good quality, shape, angle on the forehand from Rybakina. First, the one that she, sends Blinkova flying out of the court with, and then to finish it off as well. A few points like this in the breaker, yeah. I think when Rybakina, you can see that she's adjusting to the situation. She's not just gonna like keep blasting through her shots, but she actually also is forced to actually like change the tactics a little bit.
And at this point, I remember pretty well as well from our live watch along in January, the 12-11 point, and so therefore Rybakina's first match point, the match point save from Blinkova. I certainly remember the winner and the nature of it because I still thought it was a pretty difficult shot. But what happened before that was it was a fairly neutralish rally, not super long, but there was some really good depth from both players that actually put both players in a slightly tricky position. Ultimately, a short ball comes off one of Blinkova's very long shots, if you like, with good depth. She gets a short ball, but it's not, I'm putting that in the net, I think, personally, because I can't get that kind of sort of spinny sort of whatever you would call it, like top spin on it, if you like. Especially, I mean, Blinkova, as we said earlier, is not exactly famous for her top spin, but this was one where you just got to whip it over the net. And she did that with coolness that, belied the fact that she was match point down.
I'd like to think I've made that. I mean, that's kind of, I guess, one of my strengths, these whippy short shots. But, well, given the pressure situation, it's massive for her to land this. And probably the previous shot is actually the best, the open stance back, and that goes super deep into the court. Like, that's kind of the one that sets up the short ball, of course. But, yeah, still nothing easy. You can see she kind of has to, like, be very, very compact with how she's moving towards that ball, almost runs into it. And yeah, I mean, now it's Blinkova's turn to save some match points.
12 all now in the tie break. Who's going to have the next match point? Well, I can tell you it's Rybakina again for her second match point on return. Good depth from Rybakina on this point. Again, no lacking in bravery there. And again, well, this time it's Rybakina. I say again, we're seeing somebody pull the trigger. Normally it's Blinkova and pulling the trigger and maybe not working out, especially into the net. And that's exactly what Rybakina does there. That one was even probably a bit more optimistic. I mean, Blinkova did it earlier, as we mentioned, and put it into the net, I think at 9-7. It was kind of there. Maybe it finishes the rally, maybe it doesn't. This one from Rybakina was a bit desperate, I thought.
I mean, she's not like full hard, like, she's not going for it, I guess, all that much maybe as Blinkova was previously. She's definitely more in position. She's definitely more in position than Blinkova was, I'd say. I don't know. It's obviously, it's their games. You can't really like completely step away from your play style. Have to look for these opportunities pretty aggressively. I'm pretty sure this is not a match point where like Rybakina is now. I don't think she will ever watch this tiebreak actually, but I'm pretty sure this is not one of these match points where she would be like, nah.
Well, Damien, funny you should say that. I have Elena Rybakina who's backstage. She's going to join. No. Well, one year maybe will be good, but actually you don't want to have a super biased person. You want to have maybe two. You need to have someone from both members of the team, if you like, or both.
Blinkova and Rybakina, that would be golden.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Rybakina wouldn't go for it, and I totally understand it.
She would go for some of the shots here, but she wouldn't go for talking tennis. No, you're right. Next match point, which feels like about 150th for Blinkova. It's at 14-13. It's on the Rybakina serve, so theoretically not as big a chance as some of the other ones that were obviously on her serve earlier. And on this one at 13-14, it's an ace from Rybakina, which, yeah, probably one that had Blinkova lost the match, I don't think she would have been thinking about that particular match point for very long.
Yeah, I think I read some quotes today from Blinkova after the match, and she was also kind of like, well, this was what I was thinking during the tiebreak, that like she just has a big serve, right? So if she ever hits an ace on a match point, there's just nothing I can do, and that she was just trying to push these sort of thoughts away. But yeah, it can happen. Of course, in this case, this is a match point save, but the other direction, I mean, this also was a possibility that never materialized.
At the moment, they're basically holding serve, so to speak, because now we are at a match point for Rybakina on the Blinkova serve at 14-15, which is probably Rybakina's third match point, I guess. But Rybakina is very much in this rally, a pretty neutral rally at the moment. In fact, I would even say she's slightly up until Blinkova decides to step up the pace and then become in charge of the rally and hit one of the most nervous. She hits it without nerve, or she probably had some nerves, but put it like this, I'm nervous for her watching the lofted ball from Rybakina that feels as though it's gone up so high, it's gone around the International Space Station and back, and yet she's still got to put that smash away, and Blinkova did pretty comfortably, but still pretty nervy.
There's a funny expression from the coach as well when she hits that. He's like, yeah, I think he was expecting her to miss it too.
Blinkova's coach said that.
Yeah, I mean, no, I mean the expression on his face. I mean,
oh, okay.
Or the moment she hits it, but obviously the shot that won the point was the angle on the backhand previously. I mean, that's the one that Rybakina is just like completely out of it after a while. But of course, under that sort of extreme pressure, you don't have to land that smash. And there's going to be a couple more in this tiebreak, a couple more overhead shots where I'm like really, really just so afraid for Blinkova.
We're at 16-15 now for Rybakina. So she's actually now gained a mini break and she's going to serve for the match at 16-15 with her next match point. We've still got basically more or less an actual full tie break still to go. More or less in terms of we've got about another 5, I think we've got 11 points to go. And anyway, Rybakina here is serving, hits a decent-ish serve, which is probably it's a bit too easy maybe for Blinkova to get in the point, but is this maybe the most regrettable point for Rybakina in the way that was just a weird forehand error there. I mean, I think the serve could have been better. It was a second serve, I believe, but it was right in the box. Blinkova then gets into the rally, but actually that's a kind of a weird forehand that went long there, I think, from Elena. Maybe she was tired. Maybe she was tight.
The feet lagged behind clearly, like, just 2 more steps forward and she's in good position. She doesn't do it. Maybe it's tiredness. I don't know. It's not the quickest. Sorry, I mean, I wanted to say that it's not the longest match of all time, considering it's still a massive tiebreak. But the first 2 sets, as you mentioned earlier, they were pretty quick, like 35 minutes ish. So I think going into the match tiebreak, it was just like 2 hours, 14 minutes or something like that. So I don't know. Maybe it's tiredness. Obviously, the mental aspect of it also will reflect on you. But yeah, certainly just like 1 or 2 more steps and she would be totally fine. But
yeah, indeed. But she does go long, and it just felt a bit tame at the time. And she even looked kind of like, I can't believe I just did that. I mean, she's not even hitting the ball that hard. It's just she's just got misshaped on it. Anyway, that one goes long. So we are now back at 16 all, I believe. We then get to 17-16. So now it's Blinkova's turn to get the mini break. So it's not like they're just doing 2 and 2 all the time on a super quick court and they're not really getting into the rally. That's the other element. There's lots of second serves in here. There's lots of mini breaks coming and going. There's lots of chances as well. I mean, we had that serve that saved the match point for Rybakina, but after that, it's pretty much, well, we don't know where this point's going. It could go either way. And there's a second serve here from Blinkova. She's match point down. She's match point up. But the second serve is very attackable. I'm watching Rybakina frozen on my screen right now, about half a meter inside the court, should launch a big forehand. I'm now going to watch it because I'm going to see what happens. I know who wins the point. I just don't know in which fashion. Yeah, and it's the forehand return that puts her in a good position, albeit that she probably squanders that advantage. And now we're at neutral, whereas really Rybakina should have won the point quite some time ago. But it doesn't matter because that forehand winner from her is nuts. And it puts her into saves her another match point, and now she's going to have a match point of her own.
Yeah, she's like even pretty far behind the baseline, yet finds the corner there perfectly. That's another one of these like spectacular saves here. And that second serve from Blinkova was 102 kilometers an hour.
Wow.
So basically the first serve of me or you. So that kind of puts it in perspective.
Yeah. Maybe I get 100. But
you're thinking you're getting lower, or?
Yeah, maybe slightly than 100. But let me tell you something about
Maybe.
my serve. I think if my serve lands in, it might be better because that serve was so bouncy and loopy and just waiting to be hit. Mine is pretty flat. If it does land in, probably on the backhand side, you've got something to do anyways. You've got a job to do. I'm sure Rebecca will be able to deal with it. But
We're gonna
I'm
bring
telling
out the
you,
speed gun for our next
maybe
showdown.
we should. But I would love to be returning that blink of a serve. I would absolutely love that. I would love to do a 10-point
Not much
tiebreak.
point down, but generally.
No. But I'd love to do a 10-point tiebreaker over the next sort of 12 months with a few people on the tour. And if you give me that second serve, a couple of those, I'd fancy
Yeah.
my chances of getting. I want to get 1 point. I'm not expecting to win the
Yeah.
10-point tiebreaker, but yeah,
You
you give me that.
give an amateur player 5 cracks at it, it's
Yeah.
likely that he will win 1 point. Of course, Rybakina here actually smacks the ball, maybe not like very close to the line. She does it just like, good enough to, let's say, have some advantage, which of course disappears after a while, as you mentioned. But yeah, it's really it shows that even match point up, Blinkova was just like not taking any chances there. She's just, I want to be in the points no matter what.
Yeah. And she did get back in the point, but ultimately Rybakina with that incredible winner. Rybakina, though, gets another match point. This time, I think it's on her serve. And I've just clicked the wrong button, as I've done a few times already, so I'm going to have to go back and find it again. But yeah, so she's on her serve now at 18-17, I think.
But that's the most famous point of the match, basically.
Yeah, I think it is. Yeah, I know the one you're talking about as well. So 18-17, Rybakina is serving pretty decent-ish serve. Maybe Blinkova will be a bit disappointed with her return because it gives Rybakina a chance to get up in the rally. Well, get up in the rally is a masterpiece of understatement because she has Blinkova on a plate, basically, on a string. Excuse me. And Blinkova is desperate to get her forehand on the next shot, which she just about does, stays in the rally somehow. That's lovely from Rybakina. And now she's going back and forth. That squash shot that you mentioned, I think, a few moments ago is in play, but then maybe Rybakina sort of sees the advantage, but then she's up again with an excellent forehand across court. Now again, just running and running desperately. But there's one, if in this rally, Rybakina does really well to cede that advantage on the third shot, so the +1 almost. And from that moment, it looks like she's going to win the point. It almost, with the unbelievable effort of Blinkova, almost gets back to neutral. I'd still say Rybakina is probably 60-40 up, but then Rybakina pulls off another worldy shot that puts her into an 80-20, 90-10 situation until that penultimate shot from Rybakina where she just, kind of made a mess of it. Am I being a bit harsh?
Yeah, I mean it's tough to really judge how quickly Rybakina had to react here. Of course, it's just a volley on the stretch. I mean, you're playing it. There's not going to be that much like backstroke or
It's
anything,
the drop
right?
shot, though. It's the drop shot
The
slice.
drop shot.
Yeah, I don't
No,
think
I
she
mean,
can do much about the volley.
well, I think she can do about the
Okay.
volley. Like it's just a reaction, It's just about with what sort of angle you close
Let us
down
know
the
in the
racket
comments
with.
below whether you think she should have made the volley. I think Blinkova gives her a chance because I think probably she should go down the line.
Most of
But
the time, she makes that volley. Is what I'm trying to say.
you
Like she's
think?
not desperately lunging for it.
Okay.
This is just a reaction. Like you're obviously, yeah, it's all about like the angle at which you hit the ball. But I think most of the time you should probably get this into the court. And in this case, getting this into the court is a point that's already going to be won because Blinkova, after all of that crazy running, she's not gonna like have another chance at it. I don't think so. So maybe I mean, the drop shot, just the idea to go for it, it's not really something that's like supernatural for Rybakina. So I
No.
don't hate the execution either. I mean, it was clearly just a situational play. She has Blinkova on the run there. There's like 3 instances at least when the Russian is just like, just barely getting her racket on the ball. These 2 squash shots. Then later on, there's actually a similar situation to one of the previous points we talked about, where Rybakina goes for a bit more shape on the forehand line. Again, Blinkova is almost out of the rally. So I don't know. I don't hate the drop shot. I think it just emerged sort of like midpoint as I
It's
have to
kind of
do
the
it now.
right shot. So I sort of agree with some of the things you say, but I slightly disagree with others. It's for me, it feels like that backhand slice drop shot. Probably she was kind of in a position where that was naturally the right choice, because she's in that
Yeah.
position where she's having to bend down basically to get to it, especially with her height. So even though it's not necessarily one of the weapons in her arsenal, it is probably the right shot. I think in a slightly better world, it doesn't have a bad bounce on it in terms of it. It's not a bad bounce. It's not too high, but maybe just a little bit closer to the net that would have still kept her up in the rally and would have made Blinkova have something to do and maybe therefore give Rybakina an easy volley. I've watched that volley that Rybakina does hit in the end 3 or 4 times. Every time I watch it, I think, I mean, I know how the point panned out, but every time I watch it, I think there's not much she can do with it. And yeah, I think I still feel that way. What about the next point? So in the next point we've got is a Rybakina match point again, albeit on the blink of a serve. We've got now a neutral point in the rally, but again, a bit of a careless forehand. Another one of the sort of maybe more disappointing ones for Rybakina. Fairly neutral, just keep the rally going, keep getting good depth, but she goes sort of 1.5 meters, 2 meters long, and that's a cheap one again from Rybakina.
Yeah, and there's that great moment there at 19-all when Greg Allensworth is just laughing there in the chair, which, I mean, it is a bit out of, well, I don't know if it's out of character for this particular umpire, but just in general, obviously, they are just, they've watched many, many matches over the course of their careers, and just kind of further shows you that this is not a situation that's going to happen every day. He's amused by that stage, by how long that tiebreak is already. He wants to, he wants to get off the chair. He gets paid by the hour. I don't know. Maybe he probably gets paid by the match, and he just wants to get off by now. But yeah, it's 1919, and it's just never ending. It's a tennis match. Obviously, we never really know how long it will be. And at that stage, he's thinking, "Wow, how many more times can they just keep doing
I
this?"
think it's okay him smiling as well at 19-all. If he smiles at
Oh, it's
19-18,
definitely fine.
yeah, of course it is. Yeah. But it is, it's a great moment because it's totally fine the way we can see some emotion, and there were no Twitter trolls to criticize him over this one. They were probably busy looking elsewhere on different matches and different courts and different agendas. But yes, we now at 19-all. Blinkova on her serve, and are we going to go to the next match point in the highlights, or are we going to watch the 19-all point? We are going to watch the 19-all point. It's actually probably the first one that isn't a match point in the highlights, and it's a wonderful 1-2 serve +1, this time from a backhand sort of pretty early hit, if you like, on the rise. That super risky, even at 19-all, but it worked.
Yeah, she goes for it here, like almost an inside out like backhand, and then it's just shows you that she still had some bravery here, and she's gonna need a bit more to clinch this match.
2019 now for Blinkova, so it's another match point for the Russian. Keep up at the back. It's about 10,000 match points that have come and gone, and it's a bit of deja vu. Change of direction over the higher part of the net doesn't work. 20-all.
Yeah,
and there's a bit of frustration
there. One from Rybakina earlier when like her feet were kind of lagging behind, and it's similar here with Blinkova. But yeah, it's also actually quite like the point that you mentioned. It's just a bit overeager maybe. But after the previous point, can you blame her?
No, I can't. But yeah, she probably would have been feeling a bit more confident. But yes, it didn't work out, just like it didn't earlier on in the match. Maybe even earlier on in the tiebreak, actually, if I remember rightly. The match and the tiebreak is now blending into one. But they get to 20-all. She loses that point, as I just highlighted. She's obviously stressed as well and really annoyed with herself on that one, and probably the one where she shows the most negative emotion by sort of, it's not a racket smash, but it's a racket throw at least. That showed her annoyance. But good news is to come. Good news for the umpire, and good news for those that want to get home, because we are now at 20-all. And for those of you that know how the match panned out, you'll know where we are. And at 20-all, we've got Rybakina serving at 20-all, by the way. So things are still looking pretty good for her. Second serve, I believe, was a decent return from Blinkova, and she then gets up in the rally with a forehand cross court. But then, to be fair, Rybakina comes back with interest. But now Blinkova is soon up in the rally, and the drive volley that was nervy, but didn't matter because she gets another smash that she puts away just like she did a few points ago. But again, pretty special rally, I think. Okay, Rybakina probably was the first one to sort of not quite pull the trigger, but try and ramp things up. But then Blinkova sends it back, and Blinkova then well up in the rally. But then Rybakina sends it back with interest. And yeah, I'm loving these rallies. A couple of them are a bit cheap, but the rest of them, they're having to earn their crust.
Yeah, these are the overheads that I mentioned earlier. Yeah, these
Yeah.
are just like you're watching this today. I was rewatching this point and I was thinking, oh my, she really hits this drive volley. Like this just screams at you that she's probably gonna miss it, and it's
I
not
think
that
drive
easy.
volley, Damien. I think drive volley is under pressure is the most nervy shot in tennis, even more than a smash.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I can't call like a backhand smash nervy because you barely expect to hit it most of the time. Whereas with the drive, with like a classic overhead, you're basically thinking, okay, I should be landing this pretty much every time. So yeah, I get that. And these two shots here, they're not easy, especially here at 20 all. So even today while watching it, I was like, really? That's how this point ended? I don't remember that. No, that's nervy. And then, yeah, she manages to get that drive and overhead in, and that's kind of what wins her the match.
Yes, indeed, because we get to 21-20 for Blinkova, and she has another match point. I don't know exactly how long, but probably well over an hour or around about an hour since her first one. Maybe not well over, but a little bit under an hour, but quite a while anyway. She gets a serve in, but Rybakina is up in the rally. Rybakina is up in the rally with an excellent return, but it's Rybakina who then hits her backhand out. It's not an easy backhand, to be fair. I think on the forehand side, I think we have a very different outcome, but she puts the backhand wide, and well, tennis history is made with Blinkova winning 22-20 in the third.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many points here in this tiebreak that you can kind of focus on. So it's probably a bit unfair to just say that, well, the match should continue. It probably should, though. I mean,
You probably
Rybakina
should.
is the point. It is a bit short. It is a bit uncomfortable, but still, at least get this ball in. It's definitely a possibility.
Land it
But after
in.
42,
Blinkova
yeah,
up and you got a smash.
probably, yeah. I mean, Blinkova from that position would like 100% go for an overhead, whether it would be for a lob, and then you have an overhead of sorts, whether it's an easy or a tough one, we have no idea. But yeah, I mean, there was just 42 points. At some points, a player had to crack, and as you mentioned during this recording, this wasn't quite like, I don't know, a very famous tiebreak recently was Isder Opelka, right? So like you constantly got breaks of serve and holds here, and at some point it had to end. It ends like this, but considering it was 42 points, I certainly don't think back to it as like, the worst error I've ever seen. Definitely not. And it's a beautiful story.
Rybakina or Blinkova, if you ever want to come on talking tennis, either to talk about this match or any match, to be honest with you, do feel free to get in touch. Do get in the comment section below. Let us know what you think about this match. Do you think it's right to be at number 4? Do you think it should be higher? Do you think it should be lower? Let us know your thoughts. And yeah, 50 minutes this episode was, which is like 1.5 tie breaks pretty much. That Rybakina and Blinkova played out that particular late night in Australia back in January. So it's our number 4 on the list. And so we have plenty more episodes to come. And Damien is now about to go and record another one. So I'm going to bring this show to an end. But yes, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe. And I'm probably going to remind you to do that anyway. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe. And click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.